Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. I'm Tiana Godseed. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm the events coordinator for Natural Lands. It's lovely to see you all here tonight, and I'm excited to welcome you to Outdoors Online Sensational Snakes of PA, or Sensational Snakes. I had some fun with that. We're here tonight with Allegheny Land Trust Senior Director of Education and Curriculum, Julie Travaglini. If you've been with us before, you know you're in for a treat, and if not, buckle up. We're about to learn a lot about snakes and have a lot of fun. So before we get started, just a few things to note. The event will be recorded. If you leave, no worries. You'll be able to rejoin. We will share the recording with you after the event, usually within 7 business days. Due to the webinar style, you will be muted throughout the event, but please use the chat or Q&A feature for any comments or questions. I will act as your technical support and the moderator at the end, but Julie also will answer questions as she goes usually. If you are having any technical difficulties, please message me or leave a comment in the chat and I will assist you. Quickly before we begin, if you didn't share a fun fact in the chat yet, please feel free. Your closest or favorite natural lands preserve, favorite winter pastime, something you want to learn tonight. Quickly before we begin, I'd like to introduce Natural Lands. Many of you are familiar with us, but we have a few new members joining us this evening, and I want to thank you for your support. We are a nonprofit organization serving eastern Pennsylvania and southern New Jersey to preserve and nurture nature's wonders and create opportunities for joy and discovery in the outdoors for everyone. And we've been at it since the early 1950s, and today nearly 5 million people live within 5 miles of land under our permanent protection. So how do we do it? Our mission is land for life, nature for all, and we do this in a variety of ways, saving open space by permanently protecting natural areas through acquisition and voluntary land protection agreements, and by helping communities preserve more of their land. So far, we've saved more than 125,000 acres. We care for nature by taking care of our network of 40 plus nature preserves and one public garden located in 2 states and 13 counties, all of which total over 23,000 acres. I saw some of you are close to Green Hills, which is our only preserve in Berks County, fun fact. And connecting people with the outdoors and each other, like we are doing tonight, even online, by creating opportunities for people to connect with and learn from and about nature. Tonight, it's snakes. And I wanted to take a moment again to thank each and every one of our members who make this happen. Your support is what makes all of our stewardship work possible and all of these events happen and available for you tonight. So thank you for the significant impact you have on our efforts to save open space, care for nature, and connect people to the outdoors and each other. If you're not a member yet, please feel free to join the check the website and join. We would love to have you. And the moment we have all been waiting for, thank you very much. I will let Julie do her own introduction because I often go on, but she's much better herself. So
Oh,
thank
no
you, Julie.
worries. Yes, thank you guys. Let me share my screen. All
Very excited
right.
about snakes.
Slide, as everyone should be. I mean, how cool is an animal that has no arms and legs but can still like climb and do all this crazy stuff? But anyway, we'll get into all of that. You all will find that I really love snakes, so you're gonna have to bear with that fact because I could go on and on. So I've got my phone next to me to try to keep me vaguely in check time wise. I did just redo some of this presentation this week too because I was like, I have to add more things. So yeah, well, I'll try to keep myself tame for time wise anyway. But like Tiana said, my name is Julie Travaglini, and I'm the Senior Director of Education and Curriculum for Allegheny Land Trust. We are basically like a smaller natural lands on the other side of the state. So we're located in Allegheny County, just outside of Pittsburgh, and we protect not nearly the size of in acreage of what natural lands protects, but we are doing our best. We have just over 4,000 acres, and I keep saying, like, in March, we protected 4,000 acres, but like March is rolling around again. So last March, we protected 4,000 acres. We're getting closer to the 4,200 acre mark, actually, and probably by the end of this year, we'll probably have like 4,500, which is really exciting and cool stuff. We've been around a long time, like 33-ish years. This will be our 33rd anniversary this year, and yeah, we have lots of people at ALT, 16 or 17 staff, but our education team is small. Most of our staff goes towards land protection and stewardship and development and all that good stuff. But there's two of us in the education team, and we get what we think is the best job at ALT when we get to go out and take people out on the properties and teach them about mushrooms and wild edible plants and birds and everything. Like you name it, and we've probably had a class on it at some point in the time we've been there. The education team is 10 years old, so I was one of the founding starters of the education team, me and my then boss. But she's been gone a while, and I've been running the show. And we see between 7 and 10,000 people a year at around 200 events. Everything from stuff like this to mushroom walks, wild edible talks, campfire cooking, adult summer classes. Like earlier today, I was talking about winter wildlife at a senior living community. So, like all sorts of stuff, summer camps, you name it. So, we're all over the place. And I apologize too because I'm a little all over the place. I fell and hit my head last week, so I'm feeling fine. I'm feeling fine, but I just still feel a little like scrambled. This is my first few days back to work, so I'm rusty. But anyway, moving on. That's ALT, and I will put in the chat our website so that you can check out our events and see what we have. And I know you guys are like far away on the other side of the state, but we do lots of virtual programs too that you can always tune in and learn more about. So I will make sure that goes in the chat, but I can't talk and type at the same time, so I'll put that in at the end. Today is all about snakes, some of the coolest creatures out there. And I always like to take just like a quick minute at the beginning of this talk to differentiate snakes from what else we have in the state. So here in Pennsylvania, we're lucky, we've got a pretty solid amount of biodiversity. And we have 21 species of snakes, 22 salamanders, 16 frogs and toads, 14 turtles, and 3 lizards. And I like to bring this up because sometimes we don't realize exactly how many species of snakes there are here, and especially of frogs and toads too. We don't realize that there's 16 frogs and toads, 22 salamanders. So we're really pretty fortunate for being a northern state that has a pretty significant winter. We're pretty lucky in the amount of reptiles and amphibians we have. So we're not going to get to go over all 21 species today, but we're going to get close. So I'm going to make sure we go over the venomous snakes because I know that's a big to do and a big interest in wanting to know safety wise too. And then we'll go over some of the most common species that we'll see in and around your yards and in and around different natural lands areas that you might be hiking are heavy hitters, the ones that you're most commonly going to see sunning themselves on a trail or, you know, the park I used to work at, we had a black rat snake that lived in the composting toilet, and he always hung out above the door. So, like, be careful when you open the doors. There could be a snake, not to alarm you, but we'll see one that loves to climb, and that is a possibility. So, you never know where you might encounter one. And I also like to do just a quick breakdown of amphibians versus reptiles because snakes are indeed reptiles, so they're different than our frogs and toads and salamanders. Amphibians all begin their lives in the water. They're all born in the water in the form of a tadpole that breathes through gills and then develops lungs as it ages. All amphibians undergo a complete metamorphosis, and essentially what a complete metamorphosis is, that means that you are born with different body parts than you have as an adult. So, like when a frog is born, it is a tadpole, and it has no arms and no legs, and it has a tail, and that's not the parts it has in an adult, so we call that a complete metamorphosis. Their skin is moist and breathable. Their eggs are in water, and they are jelly-like. They come in different shapes and clumps based on species, but they're all jelly-like masses in the water. And again, those are our frogs and toads and salamanders. Snakes, on the other hand, totally different. They're on the reptile side. Their lives begin on land. They breathe with lungs. They never have gills at any stage of their life. No metamorphosis, so when they hatch, they look just like the mini adults, which is zero metamorphosis. Their skin is dry and scaly as opposed to the moist and breathable skin of an amphibian. And reptiles' eggs are leather-like, and in fact, we'll see some different species of snake that can have live births. Live births are more common than we think of just in general in reptiles. And there's lots of different ways that reptiles can be born. They can be born eggs, live birth, and then there's something called ovoviviparous, where they develop inside of eggs inside the mother, but the mother's body then reabsorbs the eggs and she births what appears to be um, live birth without an egg, but the egg is in her body, so it's a whole complicated thing. But the moral of that story is that they're not born in water, is what you need to take from that. They're not born in water. And again, reptiles are our turtles, our snakes, and our lizards, specifically our snake friends that we're talking about today. Now, I do a professional development for teachers, and it's called From Ooh to Aha, Turning Fear of Nature into Curiosity. And I always tell people, I may not get you from ooh to oh my god, I love it, but if I can get you from ooh to that's interesting, then I will call that a win. So now from here on out, for the rest of your life, forever and always, if you see a snake, you don't have to say, I love snakes, oh my god, they're the best. But instead of saying, ooh, a snake, you say, a snake, that's interesting. And then you can give a fact that you're going to learn today about snakes to whoever you're with, even if it's just yourself, to remind you that snakes are awesome. And that's what I always tell people. If we can just get to that's interesting and not the like, ooh, I don't like it, then I'll take that as a win too. But the reason I love doing this talk about snakes is Tiana knows that I love talking about like the lesser loved creatures and like the weird stuff. And snakes can fall under that category for sure. But according to a Gallup poll, the fear of snakes, ophidiophobia, is the number one fear among Americans, and it isn't close. It won by more than 5 points. The fear of snakes beat claustrophobia, which is my big thing. Do not put me in a box, a closet. I can't even think about a cave. Like, can't do it. But it beat public speaking, spiders, all of the like fear factor, fear stuff we think of was all beat out by snakes by a lot. And scientists think that this is an evolutionarily based trait for humans. So our ancestors evolved alongside some of the most venomous, dangerous things in their environment. So snakes were a huge fear of our ancestors because they were dangerous. You know, our ancestors may not have had cars and guns and weapons and all sorts of things, but they darn well had venomous snakes in the bush. So lots of scientists have come together and done a lot of research, and they do think that this is one of those rare instances where this trait, this phobia, this fear can be passed down because it is so ingrained in brains for so long, which is fascinating. Most fears are learned, are something that we pick up or that we not invent, but that in our minds become an anxiety based fear, essentially. So this is an interesting one where they believe that evolutionarily, because that was one of our biggest threats as we were a people, that this has been passed down for generations and generations and time again. But we're going to break that today. Now I want to play a little game. And that sounded creepier than it should have. It's not like what movie is that Saw where he's like, do you want to play a game? And he's the guy on the little bike. I don't know. I don't do horror movies, but we're not going to play that kind of game, I promise. Speaking of fear factor, this has devolved very quickly. I promise I'm not going to terrify anyone today. There are no snakes, no pop-outs, nothing like that today. But I want to go over some misconceptions here, and misconceptions are just that. We all believe something that's not true, no matter what it is, what realm it is, if it's something on the news, something we read, something we saw on social media, right? There's stories and things that get passed down. I'm actually toying with the idea of doing a Nature Mythbusters webinar about all of the things that we, like, believe or taught from like, my third cousin's fifth wife 4 times removed said this and now everyone believes it kind of thing. So I'm thinking about doing a webinar on that kind of thing, which I think would be fun. But today is snakes misconception. So I'm going to ask you a question and then you have to tell me if you think it is true or false. So my first question here is already up on the screen. Some of you maybe answered it while I was rambling. But first question, are snakes slimy, true or false? And I already gave this answer if you were listening to one of the above slides. Oh, yes, you are all listening. You're all good learners so far. False, more like a basketball texture. Yeah, it's so interesting to, like, if you touch a snake, I had pet snakes for a very long time, and people would touch them for the first time, and they said that they're kind of soft because their scales overlap. They give like a soft texture. Now they're not like teddy bear soft, but they're very smooth. Yes, smooth and soft. And I have here with me a piece of snake skin. We have a black rat snake that loves the log cabin, and very, very old log cabin that we own at ALT, and he hangs out in the laundry room of it, the basement of it, and we always get snake skin there, a big old black rat snake skin here. But I'm going to hold it to my microphone. Hopefully you can hear it. And I always tell this to kids too when I take a snake skin for kids, because sometimes when you get out a snake skin, kids get a little scared. And I just tell them, I'm like, before I show it to you, I want you to listen. What does it sound like? Did you hear it? Hand the microphone. Kind of crinkly, right? I always tell kids before they touch it that it feels like dried leaves, and that helps them be a little. Yes, Kathy got it in my brain. But it's going to feel like a dried leaf, and that helps them with the fear a little bit because most of them think that snakes are slimy and they don't want to stick their fingers in something slimy. But they are nice and dry. Let's bring that snake skin home with me there. Another question for you. True or false? Snakes are a source of salmonella infections. True or false? True or false? Some of you are sitting there thinking like, she loves snakes. Would she say anything negative about them? False, false, false. Laura says maybe. Patty says true. Cynthia says no, that's chickens. I think a lot of things can give us salmonella, but this is actually true. So snakes are a source of salmonella infections. That's because snakes and almost all reptiles and amphibians naturally carry salmonella in their gut. And if you don't wash your hands, that can happen. I am the first to say I have had snakes since I was a child up until last year, and I worked at zoos many, many times and nature centers with snakes, and not one time have I ever gotten any sort of infection from it. It is very rare, but it is possible because they do carry it in their gut. Next question. All snakes have teeth. Is that true or false? All snakes have teeth. Lynette says false. Cassie says false. We got somebody saying true. A couple more false. A couple true. Dina says, I don't know. That's not a trick question. If anything, the salmonella was a trick question. That is true. All snakes have teeth. So there's kind of 2 forms of dentition for snakes, and it's either something called aglyphus, which is what you see at the bottom, that bottom picture there. Aglyphus teeth essentially just mean they all look the same. They're all the same. There's rows of that same tooth all the way across their mouth. And then above is where you see snakes with fangs. Now, those are called like polyglyphus and a bunch of other ways because snakes' fangs can be in their mouth in multiple different ways. They can like hinge in their mouth, they can be fixed in the front of their mouth, they can be in the back of the mouth. So, all of those have different terms, but snakes either have fangs, like the top photo, or they have aglyphus or all the same rows of teeth like in the bottom photo. Now, if you have fangs, you are venomous. There is no other reason to have fangs other than to inject venom. If you don't have fangs, there's no venom there. If you have fangs, you are delivering venom. And we will see here in a bit that there's a lot more venomous snakes out there than we think, but what we call venomous and what science calls venomous is two different answers. So keep an eye on that. I have been bitten by things with both aglyphus teeth and fangs, and I will take the fangs any day over those aglyphus teeth because there's a ton of them and they're hooked backwards. So once they're in your skin, they're really hard to get out. And they also, snakes shed their teeth just like sharks do. So when my python bit me, and it was completely my fault that he bit me, completely. He bit me and he really got a hold of like the fleshy part of my hand, and a bunch of the teeth came out in my hand, and it took forever because they're tiny and they're clear, and it took forever to get all the teeth out of my hand. But I will take the fangs any day over all those tiny little teeth. Give me two poke marks and I'm good. Been bitten by both. All right, last question before we move on. All snakes can swim. That's the question, right? Yep. All snakes can swim. True, false, false, true, true. Cynthia taking the I don't know approach. Fair, true, true, false, lots of question marks. Ah, so you guys are already learning stuff. That's awesome. Yes, all snakes can swim. And that's because swimming is not a skill, as in how we think of swimming, like we have to learn to swim. Swimming is a motion for snakes. Snakes can, so if you put any snake in water, it will swim and get out of there. A snake will not just sink to the bottom or flail around in there. They can all get out, and that's because it is simply a way they move their body. That S-shape movement of the body allows them to swim and cut through the water. So yes, all snakes can swim, and we'll see here in a bit that not all snakes that we see in and around water are water snakes, because there's more than one kind of snake in Pennsylvania that likes to be in and around water and that eats fish and things in the water. So interesting stuff. Hopefully you learned some stuff just on our little true false game there about snakes. But snakes throughout history have gotten a bad rap. So like it's not totally like this generation's fault. Like I said, this goes back years and years and years and years. So throughout history, snakes have been the bad guy, right? We've been told over and over again that they do bad stuff. Like all the way back to the story of Adam and Eve, the snake tempts humanity, essentially, and dooms us all. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, one of the very first great works of literature, Gilgamesh dives to the bottom of the sea to retrieve a plant that gives him eternal life, and when he gets back up to the surface, he's resting because he's so exhausted, and a snake comes up and eats his plant for eternal life, and he does not get eternal life, which we know is not true because snakes don't eat plant matter, which we'll talk about too as we go. But Gilgamesh lost his immortality to a snake. Typhon's 100 serpents. In Greek mythology, Typhon was the guy that caused volcanoes, and of course, Medusa's head of serpents. We've got Robin Hood, even in cartoons. Sir Hiss helps the evil prince. We've got Jungle Book, Kaa the Python. We've got Harry Potter and Voldemort. And we've even got my good old friend T Swift here. Did not do the snake any favors with her reputation era. Snake meaning someone who betrays trust. She really brought that to life back in the day. So that I feel like I hadn't heard that very much, and then like Reputation came out, and then it was just snake emojis everywhere. So she kind of, maybe not single-handedly, but kind of revived that not so long ago. But the truth is, there's a lot of snakes in the world, and a surprising amount are what science calls venomous. Now, 600 out of 3,400, that's about 18%. That's a lot of snakes that are venomous, but science's definition of venom and ours is different. So, us as the regular old people walking around, we only call something venomous if it poses a threat to humans, to us ourselves. In scientific terms, anything possessing venom, whether or not it harms humans or not, is considered venomous. So, like a garter snake is venomous. They have rear fangs, but their venom does not work on us. It is very, very mild to humans unless you have an allergy or like an immunocompromised person. It's generally completely harmless. I've been bitten by garter snakes many times, and I get nothing. Get nothing. So garter snakes are even scientifically venomous, but their venom does not work on people, and we'll talk about why here in a moment. So keep that in mind. That lots of things have venom in the world, but are not venomous. Almost all spiders. If you were at my spider talk, when did we do that? Last month or the month before? We learned that almost every spider on Earth possesses venom, but only a few are the ones we worry about because their venom works on people. So that is why that number is so high, because of that disparity in the definition of what venomous is to us regular people and to scientists. But a third of those venomous species, scientists consider medically important. We get a ton of our medication from snakes that we didn't even probably realize. So snake venom works in a couple different ways. There's like neurotoxins, which work in your brain and on your nervous system. And then there's also hemotoxins, which work in the blood and affect how your blood flows through your body. And well, it turns out that being able to manipulate those things is really important to studying things like Alzheimer's and deep vein thrombosis and even breast cancer and high blood pressure. So a ton of different medications are derived from the venom of some of these snakes. The one we have here in the US, in Pennsylvania specifically, copperheads, their venom is being used to study breast cancer research and whether or not their venom can potentially turn off the replication of cancer cells. Really interesting. A lot of the neurotoxins are out there studying like seizures and how we can use venom to slow or stop seizures or to treat Parkinson's and all different kinds of things. So if you have anything like this, like I have high blood pressure, I take medication for high blood pressure, I can thank a Brazilian pit viper for that because the medication was derived from originally the venom of these different creatures. So lots of them out there are really, really, really important to us as people, and we probably didn't even realize it. You are more likely to die, and this is like the most cliche thing, but it's the one thing I feel like sticks with people because we already feel like it's rare to die from a lightning strike, but you are 10 times more likely to die from a lightning strike in the United States than a venomous snake bite. So keep that in mind as we go. Most snake bites that occur are completely accidental because we accidentally step on them, because they are very good at camouflaging, or they are in a shoe. Like a small snake can sometimes get in a shoe that you've left outside in like a camper or a garage or something. So we'll talk about that more as we go as well. But it is very rare in the US to die from a venomous snake bite. All right, so I kind of got my spiel about why snakes are great and how underappreciated they are and some cool facts about them. So I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the different most common species of snake, not just garter snake, that's the one I'm looking at, of snake out there in Pennsylvania. And like we said, there are 21 species of snake in PA, 3 of which are venomous, and we will cover the 3 venomous at the end here. But I want to start off with the most common snake, that is the most widely distributed reptile in all of North America, and that is the garter snake. Now, our particular garter snake, there's 35 species worldwide, but our particular one is the eastern garter snake, Thamnophis sertalis. So like they're all garter snakes, but regionally there's different ones, and ours is the eastern one, which makes the most sense. They are garter, like a garter belt, and not garden snake. A lot of times they get called garden snake, but they are named for the garter belt, so they get their name from that. And they are incredibly varied in pattern. They can be striped, they can have kind of a checkerboard pattern, they can have both, they can have none. They are incredibly uniquely patterned. Sometimes, like, we say snowflakes. No two snowflakes are the same. Well, a lot of times, no two garter snakes are the same either. They can be really varied in pattern. Now, they are what we call ovoviviparous, so they look like they are giving live birth, but the mother has the egg still in her body, and that reabsorbs into her system and kind of is a flush of calcium and other good stuff back to her system when she has the babies. And they can have quite a few at a time. Most snakes are laying a decent 10 plus eggs generally. Some lay 30, 40 eggs, depending on the size of the snake. But garter snakes are some of the earliest. I lost my train of thought, sorry. Garter snakes are some of the earliest snakes to come out in the springtime. And I know Tiana was sharing some photos that someone sent to her earlier, and one was of a ball of garter snakes. And it's like, why are they doing that? It's like, because that's a mating ball. As soon as they wake up in the spring, they form clumps of snakes in a giant mating ball, because as soon as they wake up, they want to mate. And I did see someone in the chat asking if snakes hibernate. Absolutely. Snakes are some of our true hibernators, which means they hibernate for months on end. Their systems slow down, their heart rate slows, their temperature drops. So they are hibernators, and they're not waking up yet. Generally, there might be a few out here and there because of the warm weather spell we've kind of had, but for the most part, it takes like a couple weeks of 50 plus degrees routinely for them to fully be like on board with spring and awake and mating ball and doing that kind of thing. So the fact that there were some out is surprising. Those are a little bit of early birds. But hey, early bird gets the mating ball, I guess. I guess in this case. um, but we talked earlier about garter snakes being venomous. They do have fangs, they're just in the back of their mouth. And again, scientifically, they are venomous, but we don't consider them venomous because the venom has no effect on us, and that's because garter snakes do not eat warm-blooded prey. So sometimes the first thing you think about when you hear a snake is like, oh, they're good at catching mice and rats and things like that, but that is not the garter snake's choice. They are out there eating, especially when they're young, they're eating insects like mollusks, invertebrates, so like slugs, and they're eating, the cicada season is a great time for all of wildlife, but they'll eat cicadas when they're young, earthworms, and then as they get a little older, they're really specializing in frogs and toads. So frogs and toads and salamanders, lizards, those are the food of choice for a garter snake. You're not going to see them out there hunting down mice and voles and rats, and that's why their venom doesn't really have an effect on us, is because it's not meant for mammals. It's meant for those cold-blooded creatures, so it's enzymatically different than the mammal hunting snakes. Their venom would have an effect on us because we are mammals. So the venom doesn't affect a frog or toad the same way it would us, so it doesn't have an effect. So, but garter snakes are lovely. They can be very sassy. Of all the snakes I've been bitten by, that's the one I've been bitten by the most. I mean, it's always my fault. It's never not my fault because I'm approaching a wild animal, so just also keep that in mind, that I take full responsibility for the number of snake bites I've had in my life, and I will keep doing it. So I'm also taking accountability for not stopping doing that. I haven't caught a snake in a long time, though. I've been pretty good about just leaving them be. Mostly because my fiance is like, please don't. Please leave it alone. So hiking with him helps. He keeps me from doing that. Probably our second most common snake, and this is one you will see in tons of different places. Rat snakes are notorious little menaces. So they can swim, they can climb, they love climbing. These are the snakes we had over the bathroom door and the composting toilet. They loved to get up there in the rafters above the composting toilet. If you ever see a snake and you're like, how'd that get up there? It was a rat snake. That is what they are notorious for doing. They're like on the roof, up the patio, like they're in all sorts of places you wouldn't expect a snake to be. It is a rat snake. That is just what they do. Now, rat snakes are funny little buggers. They often share the same den as venomous snakes, and that offers them some protection. So they're not dumb. They're little menaces, but they're certainly not dumb. So they will hibernate together with a big old den of rattlesnakes or copperheads, because if someone comes across that, they're going to be like, no thanks. And, the black rat snake, by, virtue of just coiling himself up in there, is going to be protected as well. Black rat snakes also get themselves in some trouble through no fault of their own because their babies are patterned. So if you look at that bottom photo, that is a juvenile black rat snake, and they retain that pattern for like 2 or 3 years. So as they age, that pattern fades into the black and white that we know of. However, when they're young and they have that pattern, people can panic and think they're a copperhead. But juvenile copperheads are generally, well, we'll talk about them in a bit, but juvenile copperheads have a bright yellow tail. So this poor little guy, the babies find themselves getting killed because they resemble a copperhead because of that pattern. But the pattern just really helps them to camouflage better when they're young. Patterns naturally break up large, like if you saw that big adult, you see a big block of black color, but that pattern breaks it up and allows them to camouflage better when they're young. So as they age, again, they keep that pattern for like 2 or 3 years, and then they become the shiny black back, and then their belly is mottled black and white. So the next snake we'll see looks a whole lot like that one. But just keep in mind that the black rat snake has that vague pattern still for a couple years, and then also is a shiny black back. And if you see their belly, you can kind of even see it on that photo of the adult there, that the belly is black and white, almost like checkerboard pattern. So that's a big tell, and where they are, because they love to get in places they're not supposed to be. Chicken coops, they'll eat anything. They are complete and total opportunists, so they love like chicken eggs. That's how they get themselves in trouble in chicken coops. They'll take the chicken eggs, they'll take chicks if they're there, baby birds, bird nests. They'll take all of that. So they find themselves in a lot of questionable places because they will just follow their tongue to whatever they find to eat. Now, this snake looks a whole lot like it, but isn't nearly as common as the black rat snake, and also doesn't really find himself in nearly as many predicaments as the black rat snake. The black racer also can grow to be about 6 feet. The rat snake can grow 6 to 7 feet. It is our largest snake in Pennsylvania. The racer is a little smaller. The racer also comes in some different color variants. So we have the black racer, but there's also a brown, a blue, and a green racer elsewhere in the United States as well. But their pattern, if you check them out, their pattern is they are matte black. So they are not shiny like the black rat snake. The black rat snake looks like someone like put like a layer of like hot Mod Podge on him to like make him shiny, but the black racer is very, very matte. He's not shiny at all, and his belly is also solid color. He does not have the checkerboard belly, and I believe their young are not born to pattern. I'd have to double check that, but if they are, they do not retain the pattern as long, and they are more likely to be this matte black in the solid light color belly earlier in their life. They're called a black racer because they are very, very fast. And another tell of them is that if you only get like a little glimpse of a snake running off, running, I use that term loosely, they don't have any legs, but if you see a snake slithering off into the distance, a black rat snake always slithers with its head down on the ground, whereas a racer, when it's slithering away, it likes to keep its head up. It likes to see where it's going, so it almost looks like it's like peeking up over and just like watching where it goes. So racers are matte with the solid belly, very fast, and they like to zoom around with their head up so they can see where they're going. I don't know that I've ever come across a racer. They're common. They're not endangered or threatened or anything like that. But they are very secretive and very active and very fast. So they generally are gone well before you see them. They like to take off. They feel those footsteps coming and they're gone. Our buddy, the northern water snake. Now, the poor water snake, man. He gets called so many things. So many water snakes get called water moccasins, which we don't have water moccasins here in Pennsylvania. Down in Virginia, they do. I don't know if Delaware has any or not, but we don't have them in Pennsylvania. But the water snake, he is non-venomous. He is not venomous, but a water moccasin is. So a lot of times people see a snake in the water here in Pennsylvania and they immediately assume it's a water moccasin, but no, it's just a water snake. Water snakes don't help themselves any because they are very sassy and they will defend. Like they will not attack you, but they will slither towards you to get you to move, to go away. Most of the time, when a snake slithers towards you, it's because you're in the way and they want to get past you and away from you, and you just happen to be blocking their easiest point away from you. But a water snake is a little bit more aggressive of a snake. And it's really just defense. Like, it knows you're not a meal. It's not going to try to eat you. It certainly cannot do that, but it just wants you to go away, essentially. That's pretty much all nature ever really wants people to do is go away. It's like the main goal of nature and people. But their choice meal is amphibians and frogs, but they also will obviously take fish as well. And they get a bad rap too because their pattern is really hard to see and it's really variable. So that's why they get confused with water moccasins as well, is because of that variable pattern. They look kind of similar. We'll kind of talk about main tells of at least this part of the country's venomous snakes here in a bit. But lots of snakes also get called water snakes just because they're in and around water, but that's not true. So, northern water snake is a specific species of snake, but we'll see another snake who's one of my personal favorites, who also hangs out in the water but is not a water snake. So, that term gets used very loosely and very generously for like any creature without arms and legs that is like in and around a body of water, but it's a very specific species and they are very cool. They're fascinating to watch swim. They do go underwater, so we said earlier that all snakes can swim. Yeah, they can all swim, but not all of them choose to go underwater, but this is one that does. Obviously, he's hunting fish and amphibians and he will go underwater for them. He will even when he's younger eat tadpoles. Um, if that's an option too, tadpoles are tasty, it seems. They are, especially the big, like, bullfrog tadpoles, those things get giant. So that would make a perfectly tasty meal for a water snake. So, water snakes, variable pattern, slightly aggressive, often confused with other things, but again, for the most part, just wants people to leave it alone, and you'll be perfectly fine. But I like water snakes. I think they're pretty cool. One of our properties has a lots of tales of the past. It's one of the haunted properties, but it also has a tale of someone seeing a giant snake there. And one time we were on a hike and there was a very large water snake just sunning itself on a log next to the creek. And we're like, well, there's where that came from. So we think the giant snake at Dead Man's Hollow was just a poor water snake that was like taking a rest. Another super duper common, another very commonly encountered snake that is just all over the place because the snake is very well adapted to people and urbanization and us being around. He's often confused with a garter snake, and that's because he can have some striping and some checkering and some spotting, much like a garter snake. His pattern can be really variable, but he is a northern brown snake, and he is always some shade of brown. The shade of brown can vary, but he's always got the brown. The garter snake is generally more yellow and green and more checkery with the stripes. The Decay's brown snake can be more plain as well. Also have the stripes and the spots down it. So he's definitely got the brown. If you see a brown snake with spots and stripes, it's probably this guy. The garter snake is always more some shade of green and yellow, essentially. But much like the garter snake, This snake is small, so the garter snake is a little larger than the DeKay's brown snake. He's normally 2 feet or less. The garter snake is generally 4 feet or less, usually 3 or less. They usually don't get up to 4 feet is a really impressive garter snake, but I guess every now and again you can see them. And this snake is notoriously more docile than a garter snake. Garter snakes are very sassy. I have never been bitten by a DeKay's brown snake. Even when I pick it up, I'm not advocating that you do that. I'm just telling you of my experience that they are pretty chill. They tend not to want to be aggressive or bite. They know that, like, oh, if you pick it up, that's kind of it. Like, its fate is in your hands. They kind of resign themselves. They're not fighters about it. But they're pretty cool. And these are ones I always love pointing out to kids just because they are a little more docile and you can get a little closer before they dart off. I never let the kids pick up the snake. Obviously, I like to keep my job, but we I can pick it up and let the kids touch it essentially, but I'm not letting the kids pick it up. But I love to show them that one. It's a great introductory snake to kids too, because it is a little more worm-like. It's kind of like an intermediate between like earthworms and snakes. So it kind of fits the bill. It's docile and a little calmer and not as scary looking as some of the other ones. Um, so it's a nice one to show kids if you can see one. And they're everywhere. They love to be like right along trails. You'll see them up and under rocks. They're really good. Oh my gosh, rocks are like the best place to find snakes. Snakes love to either be on top of rocks sunning or just underneath loose rocks hanging out there because there's lots of good like invertebrates and stuff under rocks for them to eat. So rocks are like the key place to find snakes. One of the coolest snakes, and I'm very jealous because you guys have way more of them on your side of the state than we do over here, the hognose snake. And this is one that has become popular in the pet trade. A lot of times they're not taken appropriately, that's for sure, but they've become popular in the pet trade because they're just hilarious and funny, and they do a lot of really wacky behaviors. So a hognose snake does possess venom. It has rear fangs, but harmless to people. But the hognose really likes to tell you how it is. So they like to pretend like they're the most dangerous creature on Earth. They will play dead, which has a very fancy name in science called thanosis. So if you come up upon one and you startle it, they will flip over and they will go to the bathroom and they will even make a stink. And they will sit there with their mouth open until you think they're dead. But what's really ridiculous about that is if you flip it over and put it right side up, it will roll over again. So they don't quite have it nailed down because like if you try to put them right side up, they're like, "No, I said I was dead," and they'll roll back over. So they don't quite fully get it. They love to bite with a closed mouth, so they just like headbutt you. They also will flatten their neck. You can see the one on the top doing it. The flattening of a neck is a cobra, what cobras do. They put up their hood, and the hood of a cobra is modified ribs, and that's what allows them to be able to raise that hood like that. Well, a hognose doesn't have those modified ribs. He just flattens his skin out to try to look like a cobra, but he never stands up like a cobra, so he just flattens his neck while he's laying there. And he's really just a character. They're so funny. They have the name hognose because they have that upturned snout. They're egg specialists, so this is where a lot of people get in trouble when they get snakes, a hognose snake as a pet, is that you have to buy it eggs. So, and not just like any eggs when they're young, you got to get like the fancy little eggs that they can eat, not just like chicken eggs. I had a friend who kept a hognose and he would make it scrambled eggs when he fed it, because he was tired of buying like fancy whole eggs for it to eat, and he would make it scrambled eggs and it would eat scrambled eggs, which is just ridiculous. But the whole steak is ridiculous. Everything about it doesn't make any sense. But it's just the coolest, funniest, uniquest little guy that we have, I think, here in Pennsylvania. So I'm very jealous that he's much more common on your side of the state than he is on mine. He prefers sandier soils, and you certainly have that on your side, being over by the bay. So you get more hognose snakes than I do. They're such a little character. Another really funny little king and queen of mimicry here is the ringneck snake. These are tiny. They're like a foot long. They're very, very thin. You can see that one's completely full grown and it sits comfortably in the palm of someone's hand. They're very tiny. These are ones that you find most commonly when you lift rocks and logs. They're hanging out underneath because, again, when you're that size, you aren't eating anything very big. So they're under rocks and logs looking for slugs and grubs and things like that that they can eat, earthworms. They're very much non-aggressive at all, but what they do is what he's doing in this image here is they have a very bright colored belly and they will flip that over to kind of show you their bright belly, and that means nothing, but in nature bright colors tends to be a warning. So he's using his bright color belly as a warning to leave him alone, even though he is completely harmless and poses no real threat to much of anything, except maybe invertebrates under the log. But they are very docile and calm little guys too. They're also nocturnal, so you see them more often in the evening times, out and about, and slithering around in the nighttime, just because they are so small that they're going to get picked up by a whole lot of predators. So better for them to come out at night and avoid things like hawks and big birds, foxes, tons of things would eat a tiny little ringneck snake. Another one this one is threatened in Pennsylvania, a species of concern. I've never seen one in the wild, and again, I know they're more common in the central and eastern part of the state, so maybe you all have. But these are our rough and smooth green snakes. They're two different species. They look identical, except for the fact that the rough green snake has keels on his scales on the side, and keeled scales just essentially, it's really hard to tell from the picture, but a keeled scale has a tiny little like ridge on it that makes it feel rough, and that's the only difference. So the rough and smooth are two separate species because of the keeled scales on the rough green snake's sides. These ones are about 4 feet long. They're very skinny and they're arboreal, which means they hang out in trees, which makes sense because they're green. That's the safest place to be. They're often called bush or grass snakes, and they're not common on my side of the state. My side of the state, I've never seen one. I know people who have, certainly. Maybe if I spent more time in their preferred habitat, I might. But I've never gotten to see these guys. But hopefully, some of you have seen a couple of these ones that I've never gotten to see because we just don't have them. Scott and Jessica say it's a gateway snake for the brown snake. You're not wrong. Uh, but yes, he very much looks like a typical, like if you ask a little kid to draw a snake and he makes something green, like he's just a plain green snake. Like that's what you get when little kids draw a snake is this. The king snake, this one is so cool. So king snake, they're all kind of cool, but a king snake gets the name king snake because it eats other snakes. It is the king of snakes because it eats them, including venomous species. So the eastern king snake is immune to other snakes' venom, and he loves to eat other snakes. And he's our only constrictor in the state. So all the other snakes that we've seen eat their prey, and the prey is generally still alive when it's going down. But the king snake strangles its prey first. So it strangles and kills its prey before it eats it. And some really fascinating science has come out of studying constrictor snakes. And we originally thought that they essentially squeezed the life out of prey, that they squeezed the air out of them, out of the lungs, and essentially suffocated prey. But we now know that that is not true. So constrictors constrict and are able to apply so much pressure to its prey item that it stops the blood flow in the body to the heart. And that's how they take out their prey, is because they're squeezing so hard they're literally stopping blood pressure, and they're stopping the heart, which is wild. That's so crazy, like scientifically insane to do that, but that's what scientists found it's not the oxygen, it's the blood that's being cut off, which is so wild. But yes, king snakes are our only constrictor here in Pennsylvania, so they make sure their prey is nice and dead before they eat it. And that includes, and let me tell you, if you've never seen a video of a snake trying to choke another snake, it is insane. It is like straight out of Nat Geo, and just like watching two snakes duke it out is wild. Maybe don't show that video to the kids. Maybe show them the brown snake first, and then king snakes can be later once they have like a better appreciation, because it is kind of wild to watch them like go at other snakes. It's pretty crazy. I have seen a king snake before. One of our properties we saw one, which was pretty awesome, a pretty cool sight to see. We always love when we see them. We know they're a great indicator of habitat quality and a healthy functioning ecosystem, so we always want to see lots of different snakes when we're out and about. The milk snake is a lovely, precious little angel baby who also gets mistaken for a venomous snake. So we don't have coral snakes here in Pennsylvania, but often, if we don't know that, this snake can sometimes get mistaken for them. This is another snake whose pattern varies wildly in color and different splotch variation. Like they don't always look exactly like that photo, so they often get confused for other things. And the coral snake is the red and black and yellow striped. This one generally doesn't have any yellow, but I guess he's close enough. He also will get confused for baby rat snakes that have a similar pattern. And he'll also get confused for water snakes too. So this poor guy gets confused for a whole lot of stuff, but they're very, very, very docile and common. Milk snakes are incredibly common in the pet trade. A lot of folks have a milk snake of some variety. There's lots of different subspecies and subvarieties of milk snakes, but for lots of people, that is their first pet snake, is a milk snake. Oh, they got the name milk snake too because they used to be found, they were found a lot in barns, and people thought they were taking the milk from the cows, which we now know is not true. They were eating literally anything else, but that's probably the last thing they were partaking in. So they got the name, and it stuck. My personal favorite, and it's my personal favorite because I had a really good teaching experience with them once. I took a group of kids to this really far off point, and along the creek, and we saw a ton of queen snakes. There was like 10 of them. There had to have been like a nest there. But they're really incredible, and they're called queen snakes. I forget where my train of thought was going. Queen snakes, queen snakes, queen snakes. That thought's gone. But they're really cool in the fact that they are complete and total crayfish specialists. 90+% of their diet are freshly molted crayfish, which is wild. So queen snakes are incredible indicators of the quality of a stream system or a creek or a river. The water that they inhabit has to be clean, flowing water with a rocky bottom, which is generally indicative of good water quality. Like stagnant, funky, not clear water is no good, not going to happen. And it has to be full of enough crayfish to support their diet. So crayfish are also needy animals that need clean water with macroinvertebrates and food and things for them to eat. So really, it needs a really high functioning ecosystem within that creek to be able to support queen snakes. So really awesome. If you see one, you know the water quality has got to be pretty good because they are specialists of those crayfish, which means also, we said, remember, all snakes can swim, but not many go underwater. The water snake does, and the queen snake does. So you will see queen snakes and water snakes hunting underwater fairly regularly. Their tongues are even specially adapted to be able to pick up scents underwater. Wild. So remember, you can't go to a water body and see a snake and call it a water snake because there's also the queen snake. The queen snake, oh, this is where I was going. The species of queen snake, Steptomavata, means seven lined. So if we look at the overall body of the queen snake, they've got those lines of color. There's like a black band and then cream and then black again, and then it's kind of like a brownish gray, and then the pattern repeats on the other side. So there's seven total patterns of striping along the queen snake, and they are not variable in color. They all kind of look like that. Some of the stripes may be thicker or thinner, but for the most part, they don't have, spots or splotches or anything like that. They're pretty uniform in what they look like, but they are some of my favorites. We came across them, and I had never seen one before, and I wasn't sure what species it was. This was, gosh, like almost 20 years ago, probably. And, me being young and slightly dumb, didn't know what it was and picked it up, and it was so docile, and the kids all got to like touch it. It was just a really cool experience. One of my favorite pictures I have of teaching is holding this queen snake up against the creek, and it was a good teaching day, but I have fond memories of queen snakes. So we're going to talk next about the venomous snakes, because I would be remiss not to include the three venomous species we have here. And I want to go over first the fact that snakes are venomous and not poisonous. So this is the difference. Venom and poison is not used interchangeably. Snakes are venomous. There are very few that are poisonous, and that is because the rule is if you bite it and you die, it's poisonous. If it bites you and you die, it's venomous. So poison has to be actively or passively swallowed into your mucus system, into your intestines to work. Venom has to be actively injected into your bloodstream. So they work on two very, very different bodily systems. You can actually drink very small amounts of venom and be perfectly fine because it's not the right body system. So again, if you eat it and you die, poison. If it tries to eat you and you die, venomous. Two very, very different things. Now, this is rules for Pennsylvania venomous snakes only, because Pennsylvania only has venomous snakes from one family, and that family all shares the same traits. Do not go to Florida, do not go to Arizona, do not go to Virginia and try to use these rules because they won't apply. Because it only applies here because we only have that one family, and that family all shares the same traits. So we have viperids. Viperids are slow, they are thicker, and they have triangular shaped heads. That's who we're looking at the bottom. Now, in other parts of the country and other parts of the world, they have colubrids, or elaphids. Sorry, colubrids are what we already talked about. Elaphids. Now, elaphids are long and skinny and fast, and they're very, very active hunters. So elaphids are going to be things like mambas and cobras, whereas what we have here in Pennsylvania are viperids, which are rattlesnakes, vipers, adders. Here we have rattlesnakes, right? So we've only got those guys here, and those are the less scary of the two main families of elaphids and viperids. The viperids are much less likely to cause death for lots of different reasons, and we'll kind of look at that. But all viperids, which means all of our venomous snakes here in Pennsylvania, have the triangle-shaped head, which means their head is very fat. It looks like they've got chipmunk cheeks. They've got like cheeks full of like acorns or something. Like their cheeks are very fat compared to their snout, so it's a big triangle. Their eyeballs also are vertical slits, like a cat eye, like vertical up and down. Elaphids, again, the mambas and the cobras, they have the perfectly round pupils, and they have the heads that look like just like all of our other snakes, so they're very different in shape with that as well. Here's a good look at the head. The elaphids and all of our other snakes that we have here in Pennsylvania have the regular kind of rounded head, where if we look at, I know this says cottonmouth, but this was the best image I could find, they have that more triangle shaped head, and it's even sometimes more obvious than that photo. We can even look at the snout. Like, you shouldn't really get close enough to look at the snout, and you absolutely shouldn't be close enough to look at the vents. The vents are essentially the tail, and like where the snake goes to the bathroom is called the vent, and everything past that is the tail. You shouldn't be that close, right? If you're not an expert, don't determine that. Don't grab him by the tail and try to count and see if that's venomous or not. You're probably already getting bit. So don't go by that. Just look at the shape of the head, and if it's even vaguely triangular, leave it alone. We also have the great fortune here in Pennsylvania of two of our three snakes being rattlesnakes. That means they have a rattle on their tail and they make noise. I cannot tell you how many photos, and I love when people do this. I love when people do this. I just wish they like took a moment sometimes, because I will get photos from people, and my phone number is everywhere. People are welcome to send me photos of things and be like, "What is this?" But people love to send me photos of baby black rat snakes and be like, "Is this a rattlesnake? Like, does it have a rattle?" No. It's not a rattlesnake. Rattlesnakes are born with their rattle. They don't develop that. They've got a couple little buttons, and each little notch on a rattlesnake's tail is called a button, which I think is just adorable. But they are born with at least a couple buttons. So if there's no rattle on the tail, it is not a rattlesnake. It could very much be a copperhead, but that's a whole other conversation. So our venomous snakes, viperids, which means they are smaller, they're fatter, they're slower, they have a triangle-shaped head, vertical slit pupils. They're also ambush predators. Elaphids, like mambas and cobras, are actively out there hunting. All of our venomous snakes are sit-and-wait hunters. That's most of the time when people get bit is because the snake is in ambush mode trying to stay stealthy for prey and we accidentally step on it. That's what most commonly happens. But they are sit and wait. They're not out there actively looking for something to eat. Because they're heavier, thicker bodied, they can't not jump, but they can't thrust at a prey as much as a cobra or a mamba can. So the general rule of thumb is a rattlesnake can reach about 1/3 of its body length away to snatch a prey item, whereas the elaphids and the cobras can reach upwards of like half or 2/3 of their body away. So they're really able to propel themselves farther, whereas our rattlesnakes, because they're thicker and heavier, can't, jump out as far to snatch a prey item. So not that I'm saying you can get closer, but it's they can't reach you from as far away as some of those other snakes can. Now, our three here we have in Pennsylvania. The timber rattlesnake is the most common. He's the only rattlesnake in the northeastern U.S. Very mild disposition, but has a pretty high venom yield rates, and they have two different color phases. So we've got the yellow on top and the black down below. Doesn't make a difference to their venom or anything. It just happens to be. It's kind of like a screech owl. We have the black or the brown and the gray screech owl, and we have the yellow and the black timber rattlesnake here. They are generally not found west of the Laurel Highlands. So here in Pittsburgh, we don't really have them. But once you get out towards the Laurel Highlands and farther out east, you can find them in rocky outcroppings in dense forests. They love old growth forests, and a lot of time they're on like rock, cliffy kind of areas, sunning themselves quite regularly. But they are very, very mild in disposition. Again, they don't want to bother you, and that's the thing about rattlesnakes too, and any venomous animal, is that producing venom is incredibly energetically expensive. They don't want to waste it on you because they know you aren't food. You aren't something they can digest. They would rather use that venom that took them a lot of energy to produce on something they can actually eat. So they are hesitant to, like, a lot of snakes will do what scientists call dry bites, which means they will bite you but not inject any venom because they can control their venom. That's a misconception that they can't. They absolutely can. So they can bite without injecting any venom as well. So keep that in mind too. But this is our most common, the timber rattlesnake. The Massasauga, I don't know if you guys have the Massasauga out your way. This might be like the one time that I have it in my, like on my side and not on your side of the state. But Massasauga in Chippewa means great river mouth. They are a marshy, swampy loving snake, and they are endangered here in PA. There's only one or two colonies of them left, maybe three. One of them happens to be at Jennings Prairie, the Jennings Environmental Center, up by kind of like the Slippery Rock area. So about an hour, a little over an hour from me, but that is one of the known populations. And this is a small snake. They're generally about 2 feet long, but they do have that tiny little rattle in the back there. You can see that one only has about 3 buttons on his rattlesnake because again, each little notch is a button. And I actually let me grab it. This was probably not ethically sourced, but um, I have a rattlesnake button here. You can kind of hear it. And a rattlesnake's rattle is actually made of keratin, so it's the same stuff that our fingernails are made out of. And what produces the rattle sound is additional pieces of keratin inside of each of those buttons. So it's really just like keratin. I'll hold it up to my thing so you can hear it. It's really just keratin fingernails with more keratin on the inside that causes that rattling sound. Lots of snakes will mimic that too, and lots of creatures that aren't even snakes will mimic that. They'll like rub their scales together to try to make that sound so that you think a rattlesnake is nearby and you'll go away. Because again, the whole goal of nature is to get you to go away. So, lots of creatures have learned to mimic that over the years. Probably definitely the second most common here in PA is the copperhead. The copperhead does not have a rattle. This is not a rattlesnake like the other two. So this is the one time we got to look for those other signs, the triangle head and the vertical pupils. Here we also have when they're babies, they have a yellow tipped tail because again in nature, bright colors means leave me alone. And those juveniles have the yellow tipped tail. They prefer forests and rocky outcroppings, but are a little bit more of generalists with the habitat, and they can also be found in swampy regions as well. We did have a copperhead. We did never see it, but it actually bit someone's dog. The dog was fine at one of our properties, and we didn't think we'd never seen them there. But the vet called and was like, yeah, I tested and that's totally what it was. So that's the only way we knew one was there. And we think it was like a rogue male on its way looking for, a permanent habitat and place to breed and set up. And we don't know if he's still there or not, but we had one there, which was pretty crazy. I went and tried to find it a few times, but no dice. One resource I wanted to alert you all to before we kind of wrap up here is the Pennsylvania Amphibian and Reptile Survey, paherpsurvey.org. This is a great resource on research and sightings and tracking all of our different turtles and snakes and lizards and hellbenders and all different reptiles and amphibians that we have here in Pennsylvania. They have a great project on iNaturalist if you use iNaturalist where you can log and add your identifications and help scientists track how the numbers of those different creatures are doing. So I wanted to make you aware of that resource as well because they're a great organization and I like to let people know how they can support reptiles and amphibians because it's a hard one. It's not as easy as like planting milkweed, it's a little more complicated. All right. So I know I went over on time, but overall, could have been worse. I could have talked longer. I wrapped it up. But I always like to wrap up with a funny, and of course I found that, and I was like, that's a good one. That's a good one. Although kids these days, I don't even know if they know what a mouse is. Like that mouse. That is like a thing of the past, I think. They may not know what that means.
I
All
hope
right, so
not. I still know what that means.
listen, listen. I can't. I
I
go into
guess I'm not
classrooms
really
and
a
I
kid
feel like a
anymore.
grandma anymore. All right, well, hopefully you guys learned some stuff. And what questions do you have for me?
I have a couple here.
Ooh, okay.
Linda said, when I was young, I was ridiculed for liking snakes. Were you? Also, snakes and sharks get bad publicity. They all do not deserve.
Very true. That is true. They are very important pieces of our ecosystem.
Yes,
Very important. We would collapse without them.
we would. What is the purpose of slit pupils?
It just has to do with lights because they're ambush predators. It helps them filter light a little better. And snakes in general do well, at least the rattlesnakes do not have incredibly great eyesight, and they don't have to because they're hunting by smell and by vibration. So they don't have the best eyesight.
Makes sense. Kind of like the cats, they like use the light to filter
Yeah,
around.
it just filter. Yeah.
Kristen wants to know what should you do if you run into a rattlesnake or copperhead? Stand still, back away slowly, run away screaming, and hope you don't trip.
Well, they don't have a very good sense of hearing either, so screaming is not gonna, it might make you feel better, but the snake is gonna be like, what the heck is that noise? Um, so if you run across one, just back up. It does not want you near it. Just back away slowly, quickly, that's up to you. But like I said, most of the time we stumble upon them because they are ambush predators. They are curled up like, and they look scary because they're in like the strike pose with like, you can tell a snake is going to strike because it gets like this S bend in its neck, and that's its like pre-strike pose. But it's curled up like that not for you, it's curled up for an actual prey item. Like it knows you are too big, like it's not gonna bite you just to try to eat you. Like they're not that dumb. So just back away, as soon as you see it, back away. And that's the thing about them too, is rattlesnakes especially will try to make noise and alert you before you step on it because they don't want stepped on either. That could break their back. A snake is essentially like a back and a ton of ribs. Like you can't break their most important bone they have. So, they don't want stepped on either. So they're going to try to alert you beforehand.
Poor snakes. Yeah, don't step on them, please. Will black rat snakes eat other snakes?
Maybe smaller ones. I don't think they're specifically. I mean, they're pretty generalist, but let me see. I don't think so.
We had a comment when I was 5, my pet ringneck snake ate my pet frog. Oh no, that would
That,
happen.
yeah. It says they might eat a smaller one, which, yeah, they're not specialized snake eaters, which we knew.
Maybe opportunistic.
Yeah, if there's like a really small one, maybe.
Thank you for looking that up.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to
Um,
try to take out one their size or anything.
yeah,
Also, watching a snake eat another snake is so unsettling. That's another video that maybe don't show the kids until they're like way into it. Like that should not be the first intro.
yeah, no, thank you. Couple others. Are you still okay on time to answer maybe two
Yeah,
more? Okay,
yeah.
cool. Are snakes social or solitary?
Mostly solitary as adults, but they will hibernate together, and then they do form those mating balls where they are together solely to mate, but they don't. They'll hibernate together is their biggest time when they're social, and then when they have young, the young will stay together kind of in the den for a while before going off to be independent on their own.
Oh, that's cute. I know, I love it. It was kind of cute seeing them all like curled up in a ball or snugglers.
They are cute. People need
Yeah,
to give snakes more credit.
I love them.
And one of my friends asked me one time, I'll never forget when I had a pet snake, he's like, do you like make your snake a sweater? Do you like cut the toe out of a sock and like give your snake a sweater? I was like, what?
So
What do
cute.
you mean? And I was like, I guess that would be kind of cute. I mean,
It
it'd be
would be
easy to
pretty.
make him a sweater.
That would be pretty cute.
It would start making tubes when I
Yes,
crochet snake sweaters.
snake sweaters. You could be a thing. It could be a whole thing.
It could be. Oh man, I miss my calling.
You heard it here first.
No one take that idea. It's my claim to
Um,
fame. So I'm gonna
I will
retire.
not. Yes, nobody steal it. Patented now. Noah has one more question. Is some of the
Sure.
venom not working on humans some form of evolutionary trait for us, or has it always been that way?
I think it's probably the opposite. I think the snake venom was probably first because snakes are older than we are. Um, I think the venom evolved with what they were eating, and then when we come along, we don't fit the mold of what they were eating all the time. So, yeah, I think that's probably the science. I think that was the venom probably was specialized first.
So, thank you. Do you one more? One more,
Yeah,
Julie?
yeah,
Okay. Okay, maybe two more.
that's
People
fine.
really want to know about snakes.
That's fine. That's fine.
Alex says, "Do water moccasins live in PA? I grew up in an area of state where everyone claimed he had them."
We don't have them in PA. I think the closest they are is Virginia.
Okay, good to know. Laura would like
That's
to
the thing, though.
know.
It's like, remember, that's what I want to get going with, like, Nature Mythbusters webinar, because people are like, my granddad's uncle said we had one. It's like, ugh, that's probably a water snake. So, yeah,
Yes,
no.
please. I want to sign up for that webinar.
I'll add it to the list of
Yes,
things I have to
please.
make.
I know that you have so many on your list. Katie said she'd go too. Laura says, "What about territory? How you can predict the geographic area where one species live, like eastern versus western PA?"
It's less about the territory of the individual snake and more about the overall habitat. So, snakes like the eastern hognose really loves sandy soils and really loves pine forests. We just don't have any here. You guys on the eastern side are closer to the bay, so you're more likely to have sandy soils. And then in the central part of the state, there's some more old growth like pine forests, so they're more likely there. We just don't have the appropriate habitat. So it's less about the individual snake and like where like a snake's territory is as opposed to the general habitat that they prefer and what we're going to find there.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Julie. I hope I got everyone's questions. If you have any more, though, please feel free. You can either email me or Julie. And thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot to put the.
Oh, I put your link in at the
Oh, you
beginning,
put
but
the.
please
Okay.
share it
Okay.
again.
No,
I
it's all
have
good.
it too.
Yeah, no, feel
Please
free. I
share
know
this.
I'm doing a talk next week on invasive species if anyone wants to sign up for that next Wednesday. Yeah, next Wednesday.
Yes, and please come back
Yes.
next month. We're learning about owls with Julie through Natural Lands. We already have over 100 people signed up for that, believe it or not.
No, I believe it. Listen,
Oh,
I did
yeah,
that
that
talk.
one.
I did that talk in January, and it went viral, and 1,000 people watched it. Like it had
Wow.
1,000 views on Facebook. It was crazy. I was like, "Is this what being viral is like?
Yeah, you
It's as
are
close as
viral.
I'll ever get,
You deserve to be viral,
unless I
Julie.
do something really stupid and someone films it."
Oh my God, I'm even more excited now to learn about the owls. So, yes, please sign up for that and come back for more. And I'll send a
Yeah.
recording.
Yes, and we're working on the summer dates too, so that should be coming soon too. But I did send you over some August dates, so let me know which one works for you, and then I'll get all the links and all that jazz for you, and we'll be good to go
Yay.
for the next handful of months.
Yes, we're having Julie at least once a month, so please stay tuned. And common mushrooms in April, so I'm very excited for that.
Ooh,
Okay.
okay.
Yeah.
I don't
Thank you
even know
so
what's
much,
tomorrow,
Julie.
so.
Right? You got this. I'm sorry you've hurt your head. We need your head, so please rest and recover.
When I hit my head, I was like, oh my god, there goes like 10 mushroom scientific names and 5 passwords that I will just
No,
never recover.
not the mushroom names.
Not the names.
Well, I hope that you feel better and heal. And yes,
Oh yeah, we're all good. We're all good.
well, thank you all for joining us
All
tonight
right.
and
I'll
see you
see you all
again.
soon. Yep. See ya.
Night.